What's happening, folks? Welcome to another episode at the Dominance Academy. This is Coach Justin, Mr. Justin. Yes. Hope you're having a good Saturday. Yep. My shit was busy. And now we're just chilling. I hope you're having a nice relaxing evening where we are. And so I was inspired to, I was thinking about this topic, about women losing their femininity. Because I connected with this lady who was following me on Instagram. And she was a new follower. And so I went over to a page and just kind of looked at her stories, and she has some interesting stuff. Nothing that she'd created, but it was like stuff she'd gathered from somewhere else on Instagram. And I left her a comment, and we got into this conversation about how she was in a marriage for 15 years, and it was predominantly sexless. And she was doing all the work. She was basically making all the decisions. She was leading the household. And this turned into her feeling very, progressively detached from her femininity. And I'm going to have to learn how to say that better, because I'm going to say it like a million times in the show. Femininity. And so she and I got into this nice back and forth just about where she thinks that came from and why it happened, and the effects of it, both like short-term, long-term effects. And it was an engaging conversation. So it got me thinking, and truth be told, it's something that I hear a lot online, Instagram, Clubhouse, YouTube. Basically the guys just like complaining about women losing their femininity. And I was like, nah, like that's just not the case, because I live in a world where I don't experience this. But so I was like, okay, let me just listen better. Let me listen differently, instead of being in my little bubble. And so I'm talking with some other guys, and I've got a client who has spent time in Mexico, spent time in Central America, South America, and he was just describing his experiences there. And because the culture is just so different, he was telling me that women are just 180 degrees different than they are in the United States. And he was a person who lived in a major metropolitan area. So he's used to dealing with like city girls, right? And granted, he didn't have much of a problem with the girls here, but he was like, holy shit. Like the amount of like presence or whatever just didn't even have to be at the same level as necessary, say in like New York or LA or Miami or what have you. And he was just describing just how easy it was, like how tons of women would just make friendly eye contact, smile, bat their eyelashes. And, in my head, like part of it is like, okay, I understand that this is probably due to cultural understandings, right? Just a long lineage of like women behave like this and men behave like this. And there's no in between. There's no crossover, right? It's just there's been a history of expectations about how men and women are to behave in certain cultures. And then, of course, there's the factor of, he's like this tall, good-looking white guy. And so they're like seeing dollar signs in their eyes. And who knows? Like maybe they're like, fuck, I want to get out of here. If I really hit it off with this guy, maybe he'll want to marry me, or he'll want to make me his girlfriend, and so on. And one of these girls, wanted to be his girlfriend. He made it clear he was not interested in getting married. And she was just like right out of the box, super submissive, super accommodating. and very much willing to give of herself. And this is even at a distance. So when he was in her presence, it was, it was like tenfold. And then over a distance, she was just, incredibly like serving and generous with her time and her attention and things of that nature. Like, oh, how can I serve you today? Right. And, and so he was like, holy shit, like this is crazy. And it was just kind of showing me the dialogue and so on. And it, on one hand, I was like, happy for him. And then on the other hand, I'm thinking, boy, guys just don't really get to experience this. Like on a regular basis, the average dude in America, he's not experiencing a enthusiastically accommodating woman. And it's not like, my client's like some demigod, right? Like he's a regular dude, right? Like regular dude who takes care of himself. He's got a decent job. He's not like a millionaire or anything like that. He goes to the gym, right? Takes care of himself. So it's not like he's this like Superman. But he's experiencing this, and it's just like guys just don't really get this. They don't get to experience the other side of female nature, right? And this side of female nature is, it's quite a mystery, I think, to a lot of guys. I really think it's a mystery. It's sort of like this unicorn thing where they get glimpses of its existence, or they hear about its existence, like fucking the Loch Ness monster. Femininity and submissiveness is like the Loch Ness monster for your average American guy. And and that's a bit saddening. It's a little concerning. And yeah, on one hand, I'm sitting here considering the state of men in the West, and yes, you guys are in poor shape. You're really in poor shape, and there's a lot of depression. Guys who are just saying like, you know what, fuck it, I don't give a shit anymore. Like I wouldn't even say like depression, but just nihilism, where they just don't care. There's just nihilistic apathy, and I can understand that. Just considering just I won't go through it all, but just a lot of the shit like the red pill guys talk about. And well, I do think that it's entirely destructive to be filling your brain with this sort of stuff. Some of these things are facts, and these guys look at that and go, you know what, I don't want to like have my life ruined for fear of just not being able to get up again. And and then they're getting manipulated. I've mentioned this in older shows. If you want to know how people are getting manipulated, watch this documentary on YouTube. It's called The Century of Self, and it's a 3-hour long documentary, and it's about Edward Bernays. And Edward Bernays was either like a nephew to Sigmund Freud, or an understudy, or something along those lines. And but Bernays was not really into the one-on-one psychology the way Freud was. Bernays had a curiosity about the psychology of people in mass. And he wanted to know if they could be affected in the same way that, say, someone could be affected one-on-one, with like stimuli and response, that sort of stuff. And turns out that, he made a bunch of like hypotheses, and then he made tests, and it turns out that people are easily influenced. You can easily influence the way they think, and then therefore make predictive measures on their behavior. And he did all kinds of tests to show that this actually is true. And once he formulated his ideas into theories, at that point he was hired by governments to create their propaganda campaigns. And the formulas that he made was then moved into advertising and marketing. And it's the same formulas that we use today, like that he made back in the 40s or some mid to late 40s, something like that. And it's all the same shit. And it's used to massage and coerce and corral the minds of the masses. Now, you go back to periods of, say, like the 1940s and earlier, men weren't so easily affected. It was really hard to make men buy stuff because men were like of the mindset, do I need it? And does it fit a functionality that I require? And they didn't buy much based on desire. And so it was really hard to tap into them, like into the male shopping market, for the longest time, and still is today. The way to make money is to sell to women. I know that my coaching would probably be 10 times what it is now if I were coaching women instead of men. But I realized that that in order to affect things properly, you actually have to coach men, because it starts with men. And this is the reason why we have the effects that we do in society. And I think the powers that be, they know this as well. So a long time ago, say if we were all Vikings on a ship and we're like, let's go raid over there. So we get into our boat with our weapons and we sail over to that land. The first thing we're doing is we're destroying the able-bodied men, because that's their only defense. And then once that's gone, we're just going to be able to take and slaughter and utilize whatever we want. So the same sort of thing happened, but it's not like the system needs to physically harm us. All they need to do is just get into our heads. Just get into our heads, start accessing our emotions. And from a previous show, remember I told you about the portal, right? There's a portal with the membrane. And over time, through certain means, you can make that membrane thinner and thinner and thinner, such that the portal towards to the emotions becomes easier to access. And so that's what's been happening for a number of decades. And so now guys are just easily manipulated by their emotions. And now they're becoming stronger and stronger consumers. They're becoming much more image conscious. And through that, you can start promoting ideas of guilt and shame and self-consciousness, insecurity. And this is really what causes people to buy shit, because it makes you think you need something to fill this hole that was dug into you. And this is essentially what's happened to guys. So, you combine that with, say, what's happened with women, and it's almost like the opposite has happened. We were aware of the effects of feminism and, what's been going on with that whole thing for the many decades as well, and how it's really affected perception, belief, and behavior. And now it's becoming more and more prevalent, and you might not see it in behaviors, right? So it's not like every woman is like signing up to be lawyers and things of that nature, right? But it's the mindset, and you can see it a lot in, say, comment sections on like Facebook, into Instagram, things of that nature, TikTok, X, all sorts of stuff. And it's much more like, I don't want to say masculine, but it's like it's this masculinization and assertiveness and boldness and things of that nature. And the problem with that drug is that it feels great. Like, it feels really good to be assertive, especially if you've spent any size of time not being that way. And so when you do get this opportunity and then you get used to it and you start living this way, it becomes intoxicating. It becomes intoxicating to stand up for yourself to be assertive, to be dominant, to push your will forward and speak your mind. And your will can be physical or it can be mental, verbal, what have you. And so both of these things, both of these effects, by say drawing women out away from their core and pulling men in away from their core, but through a detour and pulling them in deeper into their emotions, both brings us away from our true natures. And this is a very, very clever and strategic way to make a society dependent upon a system without ever having to call for martial law or lift a finger or anything of that nature. And then it's going to cause so much strife that, on the ground level, that really, after you get the wheel spinning, you don't have to, you just kind of let them go at each other, right? And like we've been at, like, say, what I've heard is a gender war for quite some time now. And so it's like, yeah, we don't, the elite, there's like, we don't really have to do anything now because they're just tearing each other down. And this is a great way to control a society, right? Because one of my teachers, I mentioned it before, he was ex-Marine, ninjutsu, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, crazy guy, militia sort of dude from Texas. And he was basically preparing for World War III. And he said to me, Justin, the most dangerous person on the planet is a free-thinking man. And, I thought about that and I didn't understand what he was getting at, because when he told me that, he was my age, and I was quite a bit younger. And, but now I get it. And it's even more apparent now because of the sleepiness of so many people. Right. And so I understand the whole problem, the complexities that are part of what, men and women are dealing with. And, so guys will see this, they'll see the effects of these things and they'll say, you know what? I don't want to fucking deal with these women. I don't want to deal with their masculine presenting attitudes and their mindsets and things of that nature. And they're like, you know what? I'm going somewhere else. And for those that actually do it and then they create something of that, fine. Congratulations to you for taking your life into your hands and just doing something about it. If you don't like it, whatever it is, change it. There's many things in our lives that are within our ability to control. Some things we can't control, all right? But there are many things. And so where you live and the people you interact with are completely within your control. So I know some guys who have said, fuck it, and they moved to South America. I know guys who said, fuck it, and they've moved to East Asia. And they're doing fine. So, but really, the majority of guys are not doing that. But they're bringing it up as though like it's like a threat almost, right? And they'll say this and say that about these types of women, just as a means of like sticking it to them, right? They want to like put the knife between the ribs and give it a little twist to women. And this is the wrong way. This is not the way of men. There's no room for bitterness as a man, because that means you're taking shit that has nothing to do with you way too seriously, right? Like, just like if you're having trouble with women, there's a good chance that it's a multifaceted problem, and you are part of that. But the thing is that like you guys can't sit there and think that there's nothing wrong with you, because one of the, just like in AA, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar with AA, But I've had some friends who've gone through the programs, and I think one of the first things is just making recognition to the self that there's a problem and that you are it, that you are the one who's causing your own suffering. And it's gotten so bad that you're causing other people to suffer. And this really is a thing of addiction, but it's also complete parallel to manhood. So when you're operating poorly as a man, you not only cause suffering of yourself, but you will affect other people. You will either cause them suffering, or you'll just prevent them from not suffering. Like you'll prevent them from experiencing not suffering. Does that make sense? So, and this, this is a problem. So if you really want to start on the path, it's having radical honesty and understanding that you have issues. And sure, do women have issues? Fine. But you know what? All those women out there, they're not yours. They're not your woman. So stop critiquing them as though they were. Your woman, you can critique. Absolutely. Okay, that's part of leadership, is having constructive criticism and guidance. But to try to guide women who aren't yours, to spout your opinions about what feminism has done to them and what they should be doing, and you're pissed off about this and about that. Like, seriously, that's like pissing into a tornado. Like, it will have zero effect. Zero. I don't care how airtight your argument is, it's not going to affect anyone. You're wasting your time. What should be done is taking that same energy and pointing it at yourself and saying, okay, I know there's problems outside of me that have to do with women. Great. Okay. Acknowledgement. Now push it aside. The next real question is what can I do about me? And no, I'm not telling you to go to the gym. I'm not telling you to get a better job. I'm not telling you to build your social media. I'm telling you to fix the shitty communication that you have with yourself. Because I know that you guys have shitty communication. There's an ongoing internal dialogue that is deplorable. I mean, sometimes it's just loosely depressing. And then other times it's straight up deplorable. Like things that you guys say to yourselves, you would never allow another person to say it to you, yet you say it to yourself. And the thing is, though, is that I understand part of the frustration that guys have is that they want to bring women to a better place. I think this is part of our nature. I think this is part of our nature as men. It's our own form of nurturing. And you could put it under the umbrella of protection or what have you, but we certainly have a nurturing capacity to us. And it's the sort of thing that just, I don't know, makes you want to get up and do the right thing when you see a woman who's upset, or a woman who's in trouble, or a woman who's injured, or something along those lines. I'm saying that just in general, of course, there's going to be some guys who are just so fucking bitter and lost that you're going to be like, fuck them. Right. And, whenever somebody has that strong of an opposition, they actually want women more. But that's another story. So it's in our nature to nurture women. And the thing is, though, is that just like in life saving, you have to protect yourself first. You have to serve yourself first before you can serve another. And if there's aspects of yourself, and there are, if there's aspects of yourself that need realigning, that need pruning, that needs an audit, then you need to do that. You need to do that for the sake of yourself, and it will have the added benefit of being able to traverse over towards women, right? Whatever woman wants to get on your program, because you cannot lead. You cannot lead. You cannot be effective. You cannot be influential in a good way if you are all fucked up. If you still have a terrible relationship with yourself. And this is where you can be effective in the way of being influential towards women's femininity. Jeez. And so, like this lady who I was chatting with, and she's like, I feel lost. Like, so she realized that she was in a bad place. Okay. And I told her that's good, because part of, whether you're a man or a woman, part of getting to the truth of who you are is radical honesty. You have to be really, really fucking honest with yourself. And in order to do that, you have to really want it. And she, I suppose, got to a point where she could go no lower. She got to a point where she was sick of who she was. And you guys are going to be in the same position. You're not going to change until you become sick of who you are and stop pretending that you think you're great, that everything's good. It's not. And you know it's not. So she had gotten to this point in some degree. And she's like, but I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to reconnect with my feminine side, or my feminine nature, rather, because I had spent so much time, behaving like the stereotypical man. And I would say that when left to their own devices, this is exactly what will happen. If you have a woman who, at some point is soft and accommodating and submissive or whatever, and you put them in an environment that does not allow these things to flow, because these things are not good for productivity, right? Not in a business. Okay. It's good for productivity towards her man. Okay. But it's not good in a job. It doesn't help the job make more money. Okay. It doesn't increase sales or whatever. So that gets replaced with the behaviors that are necessary for productivity. And it's a certain type of thinking. It's a certain type of overall mindset, attitude, and behavior. And you keep this up for a number of years, coupled with stress and poor stress management, because most people have poor stress management. Combine that with, a marriage that is just not going the way you want it to, stresses of home and kids and all that shit. And then you're left making all the decisions in the home, and you've got a wet towel, yes dear, or a completely ambivalent, or ambivalent's not the word I'm looking for, but just a completely detached husband, who's just apathetic. Yeah, this is going to send a woman into her masculine. Like, it's not going to send it, but it's going to encourage it to just continue to grow. And if left for too long, sometimes this will become a place of comfort because they get used to it, right? Remember, humans are incredibly adaptable to all kinds of stresses. And so women are adapting. Many are just put in these positions. Okay. Others are manipulated into these positions of thinking and being. Okay. Not like job positions, but that too. And so you do this over time, and yeah, I'm not surprised that their minds have been shifted. Okay. But where do guys fall into this? Okay. If you are a good leader, if you are influential, if you know how to, pardon me, if you know how to affect people and inspire them to do what's best for them, and be able to produce plans to help them along the way. You can help a woman, who has shown interest in being on your program or who has successfully landed on your program. That would be great. Then you, because of the nurturing nature that men have, you can bring her to her feminine core. You can bring her to a deeper communion with the part of herself that she's lost touch with. Now, this doesn't mean that she stops working. It doesn't mean she stops her hobbies or anything like that, because it's not the thing that really needs to change. It's who is doing the thing and how, and what the relationship to it is. And this takes time. It takes knowledge. It takes skill. It takes consistency. And it can be done. Now, this is, say, for an instance where you're a guy and you've come across a woman that you care about. You're interested in her. There's something about her, whatever. You just want to bring her in. You want to help guide and heal this person. Okay. And it's not easy. It's not an easy practice. Granted, everybody learns and changes at different paces. Some people absorb information and change very easily, and some people, they change with a lot of difficulty. And that's just the way humans are. And so that said, I don't blame guys who are saying, you know what, fuck that too. Because frankly, you're entitled to want whatever life you can get your hands on. And if you can get your hands on some nice, simple, submissive woman from Eastern Europe or Eastern Asia or South America or something along those lines, then do that. But spend no time complaining. Spend no time complaining about the current state of affairs, because it does nothing. Yeah, it does absolutely nothing. You're not going to change the world. You're not, with your quips and your remarks. Some woman's not going to go, "Oh my Lord, you just woke me up to the truth, and I am just so grateful to you that I just want to give you my everything." And frankly, if a woman were to do that, you'd be frozen like a deer in the headlights, because you wouldn't know what to do. What's up, Dylan? My croc wearing, soon to be Floridian. I still find myself at times unsure of how to respond to the question, "What are you looking for?" when asked by a woman on a date. Any suggestions? That's a good question. What are you looking for? What's the honest answer? That's one possibility. Okay. I'm looking for a woman who can easily get on my program with the least amount of struggle. That's straightforward. You could say, "I don't know yet. I'm waiting for you to show me." Okay. There's a whole range of how you can deal with this, but what are you looking for? You could completely misinterpret what she says and make it into something ridiculous and funny, right? It's like, well, actually, I'm looking for a really good cabin Airbnb because I'm planning on going to the Catskills this weekend. What are you looking for? I'm looking for my keys. I'm looking for my dog. He ran away. I'm looking for Area 51 or Area 52 or whatever the fuck you want to say. You can really say anything you want, honestly, because it's like, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. I would say, though, that if a woman's asking you, what are you looking for? I don't know. Actually, I don't even think I've heard that question before. Um, Maybe it's like a new thing. Maybe it's just because of my age. Is this like what you guys experience? Is this like a regular thing to be uh, asked? Like, what are you looking for? I mean, I've seen it typed on screens and stuff, but like, do you actually hear it like from human females, like face to face? What are you looking for? Gosh, I don't know. It just doesn't even matter. I mean, you could just tell her that. You just say that's none of your concern, or you could say it doesn't even matter. Um, yeah, I think that would be a good way to answer it. Just say it's none of your concern. What color of your panties? Right, Dylan? Say that's none of your concern. Are you wearing the red panties that I told you to wear? Yeah. Yeah. Who in the heck asks or answers questions from a woman? Um well, Uncle Guns, they will ask questions. Um but it's you could, if you're not really interested in answering any questions, you're under no obligation to, which is the point. So you can wave them off, you can brush them off, you can destroy them, you can ignore them, you can change the subject, you can answer them honestly, you can do whatever the fuck you want because you're a man, right? I mean, as long as it's not like dangerous or illegal, say whatever the fuck you want to say, right? What are you looking for? I'm looking for a 14 karat solid gold butt plug. Do you know where I could find one? She'd probably be like, what? Yeah. Uh, yeah. Been asked multiple times with online matches, and I've been asked in person multiple times. That's wild, man. I've never heard it. I've never seen it typed. What are you looking for? Yep. I'm looking for the Loch Ness Monster. What's up, Fectivin? What are your thoughts on creativity? Because I've lived my whole life without creativity, and after trying to be creative with writing a few times, things feel newer. Well, yeah, well, you've discovered it on your own. Creativity is necessary. It's necessary to be a well-rounded person, right? And unfortunately, the way society is, we don't utilize that as a necessity enough, actually, at all, right? When creativity is absolutely a necessity, because what creativity does, see, the world, it forces you to think within certain parameters, and and thereby operate in certain parameters, which then results in predictable behavior. Okay. And this is how you can control people and make money. All right. It's hard to control people and make money if your variables are constantly changing. So, or, the places where you're extracting money from are constantly changing. So what creativity does is it urges your mind to look at things differently. Either like physically from a different angle, or from a different mental perspective or different emotional perspective. And it gets you thinking in terms of ideas, okay, which gets you into a higher state of mind. Okay. I think it was like Eleanor Roosevelt or something like that. She said that low-minded people talk about people. Mid-level minded people talk about, there's like low-level minds talk about people, mid-level minds talk about events, and high-level minds talk about ideas. And so being creative brings your mind up out of those lower levels, and you start thinking about ideas. And of course, it's not easy at first, right? It feels foolish, it feels awkward, it feels difficult, maybe even embarrassing. We're just like, if you're like, what, I would love to learn to draw, and you're drawing and it looks like shit, right? And that's just the way creativity goes. You're going to have a lot of struggle. That's just the nature of it. But once you sort of like get just a little bit of a handle on it, then things start flowing better. And then you go through periods of ebb and flow where things are really going great, and then your perception changes, you learn more, and you realize you suck. And then you work harder, and then things flow again, and then your perception grows, and then you realize you suck. And it just goes on like this ad infinitum. So, or ad infinitum, sorry. So, but the creativity, this makes you a well-rounded man. Okay. Like it's good to be physical. It's good to have an understanding of facts and figures, and to understand logical fallacies, and to, think strategically, but you need to be able to think creatively as well. Because that's another aspect of life. And, you'll appreciate it, and other people in your life will appreciate it. And as far as women go, this is actually how you access them. This is how you influence them. Steve, shout out to Steve the Dean. He mentions painting a picture in a woman's mind. And you cannot do this if you are all, hammed up and unable to express yourself, and unable to feel creative. And so it's something you need to practice. You need to practice writing creatively, and speaking creatively, and dreaming and visualizing creatively. And this is part of being able to lead and influence, is because when you have these skills, it's what allows your words and your mind, like your mind translated to words, to then go into their mind and be able to sometimes overtake their mind with your descriptions, your visuals, and how you present all this. And this is how you transport women to different experiences of themselves, simply by talking to them. And this can go very, very deep, to levels of like affecting her psychology, affecting her belief structure, affecting her body, affecting behaviors, habits, things of that nature. Having a strong creative streak in you will allow you to be extremely influential, right? Especially if it's paired with having a good sense of structure and discipline. So it's all the things, like samurai, they're renowned for being amazing warriors and very precise type people. Okay. But samurai had to learn a shit ton of other stuff. Like they had to learn how to write beautiful calligraphy. They had to know how to cook and sew, sometimes play musical instruments, dance, act. They had to be these very, very well-rounded beings, much like the geisha, right? They had to be extremely well-rounded and talented in many areas, right? Not just one area, okay? And so do this, right? I urge everyone, every man, to find something that you're creative, that you find interesting, that you want to learn, that's creative. Be it painting or dance, acting, comedy, story writing, poetry, also videography, like whatever it is, photography, and really just get into it. Learn the history of it, learn the developments over time and how things changed and why. Okay. And you'll find that creativity is so connected to what's happening, while at the same time being able to influence what's happening. Like throughout time, art has absolutely influenced what happens in the world and in culture, and vice versa. It's a synergistic relationship. But there we go. It's a trap question. I redirect questions to me back on us. looking for? I'm looking to see how much you would like to go somewhere so we may please each other. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, you can say whatever the fuck you want. And being able to say whatever you want becomes easier once you start loosening up and being creative, right? Like I've got a guy who is just super fucking stiff. Like his like if I tell him to do something, he won't read like the implied stuff. He'll just to the letter like do exactly what I said, and that's great. But like you need to loosen up, okay? So in order to be creative and to be able to say whatever you like with a bit of panache, you can't be so tight. You can't be so overthinking things and rigid. All right, save the rigidity for when it's necessary. Like when my brother, I was getting into motorcycle racing. My brother told me, he's like, just go fast in the fast parts and slow in the slow parts, and you'll be fine. I'm like, okay. So be rigid in the areas where you need to be rigid, like when you're enforcing rules and boundaries and things of that nature, training. But be loose, creative, and fun in the times when that's appropriate. Okay. And, to do this, it takes practice, and you have to nurture these things within yourself. Like being a man is partly work and partly being. Okay. So what's up, Mary's K? Good to see you, man. If she's not attracted to you, no answer to any of her questions will change that. Yeah, exactly my point. Like that's why I was saying like the questions are kind of irrelevant. And I think if they're really attracted to you, they're not going to bother asking that stuff. I don't know. Or maybe they ask it because they're attracted. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant either way. If she's attracted, build it up until she's a puddle. Get her alone, then hints that you'll take it away. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Dylan, we were talking about teasing and denial. That's what I was talking about. Right. Yeah, this is a good point, Guns. I was talking with Dylan, and I was mentioning to him about leverage. And just like in business, like whenever someone like offers their thing, or like let's say you're trying to buy something or a service, and it's like they want to know how much money you're willing to spend, but so they want to know what your budget is, but you want to know how much they're asking. So if they say this, then you can say, oh, my budget's below that, right? Or vice versa. So it's whoever is able to offer up energy, okay? That puts the other person in a position of having leverage, okay? So they're like, I'm willing to pay this. Now you as the receiver of that energy, you have leverage on how to handle the situation. Now, in the case of women, when they show interest, when they show desire, or they've expressed their desires in whatever sort of way, and this goes on from the point of you meeting up and you're having that first meetup all the way through having a relationship. Okay, the structure doesn't change really. Okay, you will have leverage. Like whenever they say, "Oh, I want to do this," right? So my girl's like, "Oh, Daddy, like, can we go get ice cream?" Right? Like that, I have leverage at that point. Okay, when the girl's really hot for you, you have leverage. Now, sure, if you want, she's just like, "Oh, I really want you," in whether like directly or indirectly. And you go for that, fine. Like that's fine, but it's so simplistic. You have to be a little bit more creative with it, right? And so it's like, why stop there? Like, sure, she could say like, "Hey, I've got the round hole. I'm looking for the round peg. Can I have the round peg?" And you're like, "Okay, cool. I'll just put the round peg in the round hole." Fine. Okay. But it would be so much more fun if you're like, okay, and then you like bring it there, and then you're like, on second thought, I'm not sure. Or like, I don't know if you really want me to do that. Are you sure? I think you need to. I think you need to show me more because I don't believe you, right? And there's so many ways that you can take that energy that they put forth with their desire and be able to coax more of it out of them. And the more you do that, they're extending. Okay. And if you've done anything in the way of, say, like grappling arts, whenever you have a limb that's extended, the farther it's extended, the more the other person is fucked. Okay. Like it's hard to get an arm bar if their arm is pinned against their body. Okay. But the more it's away, the more they can't resist you pulling their arm out and hyperextending the elbow. Okay. So the more they extend, the more you play with it and make them extend, the more it brings them to their knees, in a sense. Like it brings their spirit to their knees. Now, I'm not talking like a religious spirit, it's just like the spirit of doing something, right? But it brings their spirit in that moment more and more to their knees. Now, there's a bit of sensitivity involved, okay? So you can't be like this hard ass all the time. You also have to have the skill of sensitivity. And it's kind of like playing with a cat, all right? If you ever have a cat and you're playing with a cat and you've got this toy, say like a, ball of paper tied with like a long string. If you play with it too quickly, right, they'll kind of bat around, but then they'll be like, you know what, that's just too much effort. And I'm going to just give up and walk away and go take a nap. If you let the cat get it right away, then they're like, oh, great, I got this. And then quickly they'll lose interest because they got it. So you have to learn the sensitivity of being able to do that tease and denial. Like the tease is you're going to get it. You're about to get it. It's almost in your mouth. No, you don't. Nice try. You didn't get it. And you're constantly doing this. But so if you go too far in with the tease, then they get it. And then the gameplay is done. Okay. If you deny too much and you go too far out, then you lose the leverage. It falls off. And then you can cause the situation to fall apart. Okay, so it's this weird feathering back and forth, also within the context of time, because that can also make things fall off. So if you do this for too long, such as like with the cat, right? You do this tease and denial with the cat for too long, eventually it will lose interest, right? Because it's just expending too much energy, right? All this like human interaction, it costs energy of some kind, mental energy, emotional energy. And if you're doing this right, it's going to cost her emotional energy. And so she's getting more and more engaged, but there's going to be a tipping point. It's not indefinite, right? Where she's just indefinitely going to be aroused, indefinitely going to be moved by anticipation. Okay. There is a ceiling. And once that ceiling is hit, then it's like, all right, this is done. He's messing around too much. All right. And then you don't want to be that guy who's like, no, wait, hang on. I was just playing. Like, don't do that. Like, if you fuck up, just let it drop. Just let it go. Okay. But just understands that being good at tease and denial has a lot to do with sensitivity and awareness. Okay. And it's an awareness of, gosh, I don't even know how to describe it. Maybe someone else can. Guns, maybe you know. But it's just an understanding of people's tolerance for it, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's just stuff to be aware of. But back to the topic. As it relates to the topic, this sort of shit can really bring women's femininity out. Okay, because as much as you look at it from what I was just describing, and it's like, man, it almost seems like you're like mildly torturing them. And truth be told, this actually brings out their feminine core. It brings out their feminine nature. It's kind of the reason why, like, back in like grade school, girls will like the boy who pulls their pigtails. Okay. Now there's a tipping point for that too, because if he's pulling them too much, makes fun of her too much, then she starts crying, like real tears, and then it's done. You know what I'm saying? And you're this jerk, and it's like, well, and if you just tug them once, then you're this like awkward jerk. So it's this weird middle area where you have to feel it out. Okay. And if you don't want to bother with that, you don't like that sort of thing, that's fine, right? You don't really have to. But I will tell you, it's a very fun and rewarding skill to learn, right? Because it's creative. And it's not creative with, paints or instruments. It's creative with people's minds and emotions. And when you get skilled with people's minds and emotions, especially women's, they learn to cherish this. They really do, because there's not much in the world, as far as people go, that directly do this to them. Now, there's plenty of things that do this that are inanimate, okay? Like movies, music, books, things of that nature, advertising, okay? This affects what I'm talking about as far as like women's emotions from like an indirect way or from a source that's not human, that's outside of them. But as far as like one-on-one influence in this level, it's not very common. So when this is happening, and coming from a guy she's at least moderately attracted to, it becomes something of of novelty. And she's like, wow, like what's going on here? What's up with this guy? All right. And trust and believe that when this occurs, it will trump some guy who can't do this, who happens to drive, a Maserati. Because what you have, right, this ability cannot be bought. No matter how good your credit is, I don't care how much fucking Bitcoin you've got, there's no way that you can acquire this ability through money. It cannot be acquired in the gym. I mean, except for the gym in your mind, okay? But it cannot be acquired through a physical gym. It cannot be acquired through networking and building a social media presence. Like, it cannot be manufactured at all. And it's probably one of the most, if not the most valuable thing to women, is being able to affect and move their emotional states. To be able to affect and move their mental perceptions. To be able to affect and move their beliefs, especially about themselves. If you can just imagine how powerful that is, being able to change how a woman sees herself. I don't know how these guys get in here. Mosquito, I think. But anyways, this is worth beyond money. So just know that when, if you choose to develop this ability, right? And I'm not talking like anything crazy here, right? I'm not talking about some sort of like supernatural power or something that belongs in some fantasy movie, right? This is just very real means of affecting another person's psychology. Okay. So it's a very real skill. I'm not making this up. Okay. But learn it, you can. So it's very accessible. Yeah, threshold. Yeah, tolerance threshold thing, same deal. But yes. So this is where it's at, right? You guys are like thinking about like, oh man, what do I do about these women, right? It's just being able to tap into them. And the thing is like, that's where they are. Like this place like that you tap into, like what I'm talking about, like the influence with their emotions, their beliefs, their perceptions, how they feel about themselves. This this is like largely what women are looking for. And the thing is that it produces such a strong feeling. Okay. And I think they're probably all chasing after this to one degree or another. That's why the external things are so sought after. Okay. Because it replicates this feeling. But it's not exact. It's like a facsimile. Right. So I remember there was this one artist who I think he took he put his face on a photocopier, and then he took that printout and put that on the photocopier, and then took that second printout and put that on the copier, and then copied the third and then the fourth. And he did like 100 of these and then like put them up on the wall. Okay. And the huge difference between the first one and the last one, it was massive. Like the last one was just like this weird, like abstract lines, because whenever you make a copy of a copy, there's always lost data. There's always just lost information. And so that's kind of like what it is. The say like a trip on some guy's yacht, right? That's going to produce a certain feeling that feels great. All right. And it's chasing the dragon almost. And you, in their attempts to chase the dragon, there's what's acquired is that facsimile gap between that first and last. There's that gap. It's somewhat similar. It's like, yeah, there's remnants there. It's somewhat similar. It's in the same family of feelings. Okay. But it's not that feeling, but it's pretty close. And the problem is that it's fleeting. So the enjoyment of the yacht, that goes away. Then it's like, oh, I'm going to get you some big fancy jewelry. And then like, boom, there's like this big feeling. And that's not close, right? It's some sort of mutated version of that feeling that they're after. And so this is why guys who say have a lot of money or are extremely good looking, women are attracted to that, because being around these types of men and having these types of experiences produces a similar feeling to what they're after, but it always goes away. The difference is that when it's coming from you, is that you have a limitless replenishment supply. And not only that, you can always do tease and denial of that and mix that in with a solid program that has growth involved, that has, measures for punishment and reward. Now you've got a whole system which starts changing the behavior to get that prize, to get that emotional, that win, right? To go after that drug, right? And I wouldn't even call it a drug, because drug is something that you take from the outside and bring in. This is actually just a feeling that wells up inside them as a result of your influence, right? So it's always with them, but they can't access it themselves. That's one of the ironies of the game, for women anyways, is that they have this great capacity within them. Okay. But the only way that they can actually fully feel it and experience it is through another person, right? I would say man, but you know what? There's probably some lesbians who out there who can do the same thing. Okay. Being able to affect someone's emotions is not gender specific. But let's just say men for now. It can be brought out through the influence of a man who knows what he's doing, who takes pleasure in this sort of behavior, in this sort of structure, this kind of influence. And it's just interesting. It's like almost like some of the greatest things in women can only be accessed by them through a man. So it's like, let's look at like orgasms. Okay. A woman can give herself a fantastic fucking orgasm. Like really, really good. Okay. But it's not the same coming from a man who knows what he's doing, because when she's by herself, she still is moving, right? She's still like she can't go limp. She can't go completely limp, both in mind, body, and spirit. She can't just let go of all control and give all control to someone else, because then she wouldn't be able to utilize that vibrator or whatever, right? She wouldn't be able to utilize her imagination, right? So if her imagination is geared up, at least one hand is doing something, that means she's not able to be in complete loss of control, complete freedom from herself, freedom from her mind, freedom from her body, freedom from her spirit. Okay, and have complete surrender. The only way to do that is to and then be able to have a great orgasm. The only way to do that is to give control over to someone else. Now, let's say that someone else knows what they're doing and knows how to feather that energy and be able to like bring her up and down, up and down, up and down, but always in this trajectory going here, right? So it's an up and down going up like this. I think it's called like a saw wave, if you're ever into like waves of tone sound. So the guy who's able to do this, right, he allows her to lose control. And so that's just what I was saying is like one of the ironies, that some of the greatest parts of women, they can't even access themselves. It requires another person to bring them there. Okay? Like the happiest states I've seen from my own woman was when she was in a state of complete surrender. And I'm not talking sexually. I'm talking in just regular like daily practice, where I can literally like feel her giving up the desire for control in her mind, her body, and her will or her spirit. And this becomes incredibly beautiful because you see, and she can see and even feel this presence, like her own presence, right? This new presence that becomes on earth like a blanket being taken off. And it's like she can't take that blanket off on her own. And now imagine it's like you do this, but now you're also influencing on so many other positive aspects of being able to heal, uplift, encourage, inspire, all that good shit. Okay. And now you are this supreme anchor in this person's life. And like this grounds them. They find groundedness through you. Okay. Because when something is free and has surrendered, that's what they lose. They lose the ability to ground themselves. Remember what I was saying? The allure of masculinity, the allure of domination, the allure of control is to feel grounded. And it feels amazing. It feels amazing being a masculine man with assertiveness and focus and direction and choice and power, right? It feels great. Like, I love being a man. So I understand the allure when a woman wants to do this and they want to experience this, and then they do, and they're like, man, I feel great. Yes. So when a woman is not doing this, when she's done the complete opposite and has surrendered and let go, and she's trusting you that you're not going to just let it fall apart, or you're not going to neglect or abuse, right? Because it's like it'll just kind of slip through your fingers. Right? You have to be able to maintain and contain. So you act as the grounding for this, okay? Or the container for it, wherever you want to visualize it, okay? This becomes incredibly powerful. It's like, this is where like religious type reverence comes from, right? Like, you ever see somebody or know somebody, or maybe you yourself have this high level of religious reverence for the God that you worship. And it's this, from what I understand, it's this super, super high level of trust. And it has to be, because it's not like you've got like a thing, that you can say, yep, it's there. But you feel it. So I've been told that it's like trust on 1,000. It's just you're imbued with this. And so imagine that coming from a woman through you. Powerful. Right now, of course, this has to be a desire of yours. If you don't have this desire, that's perfectly fine. Absolutely fine. You just want to have a series of one night stands. You're 23 years old. It's like, you don't want to fucking do this like building shit and influence and all that shit. That is perfectly fine. I have no judgments about how you guys want to live your lives, as long as you're not hurting people, doing something illegal, or doing something incredibly immoral. All right. As long as it's consensual and not causing harm, I don't give a shit. Okay. That said, the same sort of structure and skills, they can absolutely be utilized in short-term ways, because influence is not like, oh, it only works in long term. No, absolutely not. Influence, look at fucking TikTok. Influence can be as short as 30 seconds long, right? So if TikTok can do it, so can you. If somebody can make a fucking 30-second video on TikTok and have it influence hundreds of thousands of people on some level or another, then of course you can as well. All right, so don't go thinking that me talking about, say, like being influential and, being in relationship and long-term and being effective in growth and all that shit. Don't think that it can't apply for the short term. It absolutely can. Because it's like, you're not changing, right? You're the common denominator. You're the one that's doing the thing. So it doesn't matter. So if you want to just, fuck a bunch of different women, have adventures, explore, experiment, and all that fun shit, go right ahead. Okay? But I promise you, if you learn and develop this skill, let's call it, those short-term experiences are going to be that much more enjoyable for both of you. Right? Because reverence, if this is something that you're interested in, and then that's a bit of a trap as well, because you shouldn't be interested in receiving reverence. I'm just saying that it happens, okay? But let's just say you are. There's no timetable for that either. There's no timetable for a woman to trust you and be addicted to you, okay? The only thing that I would implore you to do is to have a bit of a moral compass. Because what this does is it urges you to be responsible, which is a key behavior trait of men. Men with a capital M is being responsible. And so when someone's addicted to you and they're willing to give you their will, then and they trust you, at least to a certain degree, you have a responsibility for that. Okay? So yes, you should be selfish as a man, but you also have to understand that when people put their trust in you, you have a responsibility to them. All right? Because if you don't, you're going to cause destruction. You'll cause harm. And then that is not just like a one-time thing, okay? Because everything is interdependent. So that creates a cascading effect, which will then affect multitudes of other things. Let's say you don't take good responsibility. You abuse this woman's trust. You harm her in some way. Okay, let's just say on an emotional level. This is going to cause a cascade of events that spreads out like a pebble being dropped in the water. And I'm just telling you, you don't have to give a shit. You could be completely villainous and say, I don't give a fuck. Okay? And that's fine. But you're not making things better. And like I said, responsibility is part of manhood. Okay? This is a somewhat adolescent way of thinking where you're saying, fuck it. Fuck them. Okay? Fuck anybody. I'm just doing me and getting for me. Okay? You have free will as well. You can do that. Okay? But just understand there's always cause and effect. You can't escape it. You can't escape these things. And I'll tell you that if you are this type of person, but you're also disgruntled with the state of affairs, it's because men were not taking responsibility. Men are the reason why feminism became what it was. Men are the reason why feminism even exists at all. Men lost their sense of responsibility and taking control of things in the right way. So you can't say, I don't give a fuck, and then also complain about what the effects are. If you're going to be an I don't give a fuck, then be I don't give a fuck about everything. And completely absolve yourself of any kind of responsibility. If you do that 100%, you'll have my respect. I won't agree with it, but you'll have my respect. I will not respect someone who actively aids in the problem that he's complaining about. That's just fucking ridiculous. Like guys out here who are just like fucking women left and right? And then they sit back and then they're like, well, there are just a bunch of hoes out here. There's no real good women. And it's like, well, but you're aiding in this problem that you're now criticizing. What the fuck is wrong with your sense of logic? It doesn't make any sense. If you don't want hoes, stop treating women like hoes. Now, I'm all for a woman behaving like a whore in the bedroom. Absolutely. Okay? I love taking a woman and opening her up. And because I've mentioned this before, it's like, and I say it a lot, like the sexual depravity that is inside women's heads would make most men pee their pants. It would make them sick with the things that women think about, the things that they desire, and even some of the things that they desire only in fantasy but would deny in reality. Okay? It would make most of you guys sick, or at least a lot of you, and go, man, look at these fucking dirty, fiendish women. They're so nasty. Fuck them. Sinners. Right? But it's like, yeah, you can have all that fun within the confines of of a relationship or just in the bedroom or what have you, But I'm just saying, don't be hypocritical. Don't be part of the problem and then complain about the problem. Like, that's just fucking stupid. Okay? If you notice there's a problem, understands that you're part of it regardless and that you need to do something about it, starting with yourself. Effective. Another one. Hey, what's the difference between fear and reverence? I never understand reverence because aren't you just in fear? You will be at a loss if you go against what you fear. No. Fear and reverence. Reverence is, well, to me, is a high level of respect, right? It's like respect plus love. Okay. So say you could have respect for a teacher. Okay. And yeah, you have respect for them because they're highly educated. They're good at their job. You learn well from them. And yes, if you don't do your work, they have the ability to fail you. Okay. Now, let's say you get to know them on a little personal level, like, because at this point, you're detached from them. You don't really know who they are. You know what they can do. You know their effectiveness, and therefore you respect them, right? They're an upright person. They do good shit. They're great at their job. And they've, say, like, very few failures in the classroom because they're so good at teaching. But let's say there's some sort of event. I remember I had this college professor. He was my sculpture professor, and he would occasionally invite students to his house, like off campus, and he'd have like a whole spread out, and cheeses and fruit, crackers, wine, like just like everything, little meats and shit. And you got to see him outside of his context and really start appreciating him as a person, not as your professor, but as just this other human who has lived, well, him specifically has like lived a very varied life. He's seen a lot and done a lot. He's gone around the block a number of times and has come out with a lot of wisdom, a lot of bumps and bruises and things like that. And you learn to appreciate this person on a completely different level, and maybe even learn to love them for who they are. So now you've got this combination of love and respect coming together. And this is what reverence is. Okay. Now, depending on the context, there may or may not be fear involved in this. There may or may not be fear, but it's not necessary as part of reverence. Okay, I don't see it that way. I see it as a mixture of a high level of respect and love. That's reverence. Okay. But, fear, as you describe, is like, fear of loss. This is a very, very powerful tool. This is basically what nice guys operate on. And the truth of the matter is that you can easily manipulate people this way, right? I can't remember what time period this came up, but when it was, early days of like PUA guys, and it was very much strategy. It was all the strategy stuff and theory. And there was this thing that came up called Dread game. And it was, small to large tactics that were exercised toward women, or toward a woman that you were seeing, to let her know that she could lose you at any time. And there's some usefulness to the feeling that comes from this. However, the methods that are utilized to get this to happen, I would say, are unethical. It's not something that I would be proud of as a man, right? If I were to say, like, look at my behavior from a third party perspective, or seeing a movie starring myself and seeing me do this, right? It's like, that's not something I would be proud of, to manipulate someone into this state of mind. However, I would say the state of mind is useful, and it can come about through non-manipulative means, simply by being something that is not common. Because that's naturally what happens when you find something that's not common, right? That's why there's like limited edition Jordans that sell for like 10 grand and they only made like 5,000 of them, right? It's this limited thing. It's rare. And so people are like, holy fuck, I'm going to get it. And when you do get it, if you get it, you're going to be reluctant to let it go. All right. And so knowing that there's seas and masses of guys out there who are completely uncalibrated, ungrounded, have no sense of leadership, have terrible relationships with themselves, are completely rife with fucking self-criticism, self-doubt, and then, masking that with fucking pathetic overcompensation. Not to mention being terrible in bed, while at the same time being completely thirsty for intimacy and closeness such that it makes them feel better about themselves. While at the same time hating women, being disgusted with them, but wanting to fuck them at the same time. Like this is basically guys in a nutshell on the average of the bell curve that women mostly deal with. So she comes across a guy who is none of that. He's absolutely none of that. He's not moved by her pussy at all. He's not trying to get her pants down. He's not trying to get in her holes. He's not insecure. He's not looking for her to do anything for him as far as his self-concept goes. He can lead. He can influence her. He can make her feel those pathways that I was talking about before, with the anchoring and, the surrender and the opening up and the trust and all that shit. That's going to look like a huge night and day stark difference between what the fuck is out there. And the idea of losing access to this is all the dread that you need. You don't need to make a woman through strategy feel this way. Your presence alone from this healed and developed state can allow her to feel this naturally. Nothing you actually have to exercise. She'll just know it by default. And it'll be really fucking apparent. Really apparent. Yeah. So I hope went a little bit longer than an hour. But I hope this was informative for you guys. It gives you some things to think about, right? And think more of yourself. Try to be more radically honest with yourself. This is the beginnings. This is how you get it going. The title of the video was really to just kind of bring you guys to watch it, really, because sure, yeah, women losing their femininity, I guess is somewhat of a problem, but it's like in a man's world, it really isn't. There's, because let's say you bring a woman in, into your circle, she's promising, she's showing up, but you can sense that she has some things that she needs to work on. This is not a problem, right? Because we don't run away from responsibility. We don't run away from challenges. We don't run away from work. We don't run away from, oh my gosh, she needs just a slight behavioral adjustment. Oh my gosh, she needs to change perspective. I enjoy, maybe that's why I'm a coach, but I enjoy shifting people's perspectives on things. There's something rewarding about that. Okay. But I get it, if you don't want to do this, you don't care. You just want someone who's ready. The fuck is that? There's like some crazy like electronic beeping happening over there. Maybe aliens have landed in the backyard. But really, it's not much of a huge question or concern that really should be concerning to men. Males are going to be sitting there like women have lost their femininity. They're going to be concerned about it. And some women are going to be concerned about it. Like the lady that I met on Instagram. She's come around and she's concerned and she's like, fuck, like, how do I get this back? Okay. And, one of the best ways that you can practice some radical self-honesty, because this is what I told her. I said, listen, you have to get honest with yourself. You have to start doing some journaling, and don't try to protect yourself from pain, from fear, by masking it with pride and blame shifting or anything like that. Like, really try to see things as they are. And the same thing holds for men. Right? Journaling is a very, very good start towards radical honesty with yourself. And just being really straightforward with no fluff, very objective, and let your thoughts flow and allow yourself to be really raw, really honest. Don't protect yourself in any kind of way, because it's not like anybody's going to read it, right? It's just notes to yourself. So that's a really good way to start, is to have, journaling. I also told her to get this diary, for you guys who are in relationships, and let's say you're working towards a dom sub relationship. There's this page on Instagram. It's called the Sub Guide. And she just is all about women and submission and stuff like that, and growth in that area. And she wrote this book, and it's 365 days of submission. And so she wrote 365 journal prompts. And, the goal is to just answer one of the prompts. And some of them are very much like DS or BDSM related, and some are not. They're just very human related, or very just focused on specific questions that like women would be dealing with. Because I think it's for women, if I'm not mistaken. So for you male subs, I don't think that book is for you, unless you want to like change the wording around in your head as you're reading it. But it's a really good book. And I got it from my girlfriend to work on. And so I suggested this lady get that. So it's really just about getting that introspection going. That's how you start. It's like, so you want to like get to all that like fun shit that I was talking about, where you can actually express yourself and be creative toward another person and have them be influenced by it, be that for one night or for years. It really starts with having a better communication with yourself, having a better relationship with yourself. And that means no bullshitting. That means not hiding behind your pride, not hiding behind your ego. Because that's where like the real shit is. And yeah, some of it's not going to look pretty. Some of it you're going to be ashamed of. And some of it you're going to be ashamed of that you don't need to be. Right? So you're going to have some false shame. You're going to have some false guilt. You're going to have some false fears. You're going to have some very real fears. But it's like, that's the stuff you have to like get into before you can actually start operating cleanly and being very calm and very centered in knowing who you are, with a sense of stillness, not aggression, right? Just feeling. Like one of my favorite scenes like in Enter the Dragon. Yeah, let's just watch that really quick. It was Enter the Dragon. It was in the very beginning. He was like teaching this kid how to kick, Um, 258, 149. Bruce Lee says, kick me. Okay. Let's see where this Mr. Braithwaite. I love how he says Mr. Braithwaite. All right. So let me say present, share screen. Bruce Lee says, kick me. And let's see how this is sharing. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'll just cover up my face. I don't give a shit. But yeah, wait, let me kill the music. Killing the music. Okay. Here we go.
Kick me. Kick me. What was that? An exhibition? We need emotional content.
See, exhibition, he said. So what is this? Is this an exhibition? Because this is what guys do. They're putting on an exhibition, right? This is what I was talking about, the aggressiveness. They're showing off. They're like, this is what men look like, right? They're putting on an exhibition, right? But he says, no, don't stop putting on a show for me. Give me emotional content, right?
Content. Try again. I said emotional content, not anger.
Right? Emotional content, not anger. So it's something deeper and more simple, right? It's what's underneath the feelings, right? And he came off and he's like, all right, I'm going to put toughness into this. That also is posturing. That's putting forth the wrong thing, right? It's not about being aggressive. It's not pretending to be aggressive. It's not putting on the show and making it look right or the way it's supposed to look. Okay? That's doing it wrong.
Not anger. Now try again. With me. That's it. How did it feel to you? Let me think. Don't think.
Yes. How did it feel? Let me think. Yes, this is the complete wrong way to go about it. Because you guys think too fucking much. Okay? But once you're like operating from what Bruce is talking about, you don't have to think so much because it's just genuine. It's authentic. Right?
Think. Feel. It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory. Do you understand? Never take your eyes off your opponent, even when you bow. That's it.
Amazing. Fucking love that shit. Yes, you're absolutely right. Bruce Lee has movies has so much game. Yep. Absolutely. But you know, and then like heavenly glory shit, the finger pointing at the moon. It's like I'm one of those fingers. Okay. There's so many more people like me, with even more influence, bigger fingers, right? And you guys get so sucked into the fucking finger. And you're like, yay. You get your finger t-shirts and your finger hats, your finger books, finger movies, and you're missing the fucking point. When I coach somebody, the whole idea is to get rid of them. This is the same thing within Buddhism. Buddhism doesn't look for more followers because it's based on like the basic tenets where it came from of how to deal with problems came from an ancient Indian medical diagnosis. And Siddhartha was like, huh, that seems like a really good method to sorting out problems medically. I wonder if we could just do this for our minds as well. Holy shit, that fucking works. Cool. So it's about healing and getting rid of you, not massing more and more and more followers. And so this is what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm not trying to be famous. I'm not trying to be somebody. Okay. I want to be somebody for an individual so that they can help see themselves and then not need me anymore. That's the whole fucking point. So be mindful of how many and what fingers you're looking at and listening to. Okay. Because, what Bruce was talking about, he wasn't really teaching him anything new. He was just showing the kid what was inside him already. And that's all you got to do. But it's just having the tools to be able to get there. On that note, I'm going to end this show. I've appreciated you guys and your time. And I think we're going to revisit some clips. That was fun. So maybe some more Bruce Lee clips or other, great movies that I like. Oh man, what was that one with oh shit, the Scarlett Johansson and this other chick and the guy from No Country for Old Men, and she's sitting in this bar with this girl, her girlfriend, and the guy walks up. It's the game in that scene was just fucking awesome, absolutely awesome. And he's just like, hey, I'm interested in both of you guys, both of you ladies. You're both beautiful. I want to go to this island. We can fly out there, or on a boat or whatever. I want to see a sculpture. And the one girl was like, the fuck? And then, Scarlett Johansson's character was like, that sounds like fun. Let's go. And he's like, well, and she's like, well, what are we going to do? Like the other chick. And he's like, well, we'd look at art and enjoy each other's company and have an evening full of sex with the three of us. And, and he's like, very nonchalantly just walks away. He's like, yeah, let me know. I'll be leaving in an hour. Fucking just great writing. But so I think we'll do that more in the future. Just some good clips showing some good game. I hope I don't get busted for that. Fuck, I totally forgot about that shit. Well, I guess we'll see if I get a strike. Anyways, appreciate you guys. And as always, I appreciate you. For those of you who are watching on the replays, check out the links in the chat that the Great Uncle Guns is putting up. It's links to my website, information on there about coaching. There's a la carte coaching, which is paid per call, or if you want to become a student of mine, those are options as well. I've also got books. I've got the How to Be a Fantastic Lover book. This is being scooped up a lot, is being very well received. I'm working on some reviews, so that's coming in the future. And so get yourselves a copy. It's not expensive, but it will change your life. All right. Until next time, take it easy, guys.